This program is brought to you by the Vegetarian Society of Hawaii, a nonprofit organization dedicated to sharing with the community the many benefits of a vegetarian diet. Free monthly meetings include vegetarian experts found locally and on the mainland, quick and easy cooking demonstrations, and healthful and delicious food samples. Members enjoy an informative quarterly newsletter, social activities, and discounts at many vegetarian-friendly restaurants and health food stores. For an application, call 944-8344. That's 944-8344. Or visit our website at www.vsh.org. vsh.org.
Aloha, and welcome to the monthly public presentation of the Vegetarian Society of Hawaii. Since 1990, the Vegetarian Society of Hawaii has been following our mission of promoting human health, animal rights, and protection of the environment by means of vegetarian education as we've grown to become one of the largest all-volunteer, nonprofit vegetarian societies in the nation. We are proud to say that we are celebrating our 25th birthday this year. Thank you very much. It is now time for our special guest speaker. We're delighted to have with us tonight Karl Seff, PhD. Karl Seff, PhD, is a professor emeritus of chemistry at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, who earned his BS degree and his Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry at the University of California, Berkeley, and his PhD in physical chemistry at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. After 3 years on the research staff at the University of California, Los Angeles, he joined the chemistry department at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, where he has been a professor of chemistry since 1968. He has published about 270 scientific papers in leading journals. Dr. Seff has been a vegan since 1991 and capably served on the board of directors of the Vegetarian Society of Hawaii for 23 years. He is also a prominent member of the Cactus and Succulent Society of Hawaii, whose outstanding private garden was featured in a 2013 article called Desert Jewels in Hanaho magazine. Dr. Seff's presentation tonight is entitled Confessions of a Low-Class Vegan. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Karl Seff, who is anything but low class.
Thank you. So first of all, tonight's talk is dedicated to the memory of Bill Harris, MD, who had a major impact on my life and me changing from being a regular person to a vegan. And he's had that same big effect on most of the people in tonight's audience and perhaps millions of people around the world. I gave this talk, or a talk similar to this, about 3 years ago, and I didn't do a very good job, and Dr. Bill recorded it all in an overexposed manner, and so he wanted me to come back and do it again and have it recorded in a properly exposed manner. So here I am, but he's not here to record it. So we have this substitute, Jim Thompson, who's doing a good job. Will do a great job. Okay, my message today is a simple one about eating simple. You don't need long recipes. You can eat simple. You can be really healthy, and you can avoid a lot of complication. But unfortunately, you will bear the burden of being considered low class. I am bearing that burden tonight, and I hope it's contagious. There's nothing wrong with simple, healthy food. It can taste great, it can be interesting, and it can be altogether satisfying. Simple, healthy food is often rejected just because the recipe is too simple. I hope to be showing you a number of recipes, so-called recipes, they're hardly worth that name, tonight, that consist of 2 things put together instead of 6 things or 10 things or 14 things. The simpler the recipe, the lower the class. So I had company, a young lady in her 30s, I think. She was a speaker in front of the Vegetarian Society of Hawaii at one of these meetings. She was staying at my house, as many past speakers have done, and we spent Saturday morning in my valley visiting an open market and visiting a farm, and then it came time for lunch, and I listed the restaurants easily available, and I said, but I have plenty of food at home, and she said, fine, let's just go home. So we went home, and I defrosted some peas. It came in a 5-6 pound bag, and chopped up 1 head of garlic, possibly 2, chopped it up fine and mixed it with the peas, distributed that amongst 2 bowls, and served it with a long-handled spoon that couldn't fall down into the peas. And one was for her and one was for me, and we both had things to do. Maybe I was looking at my mail. She took her first bite and thought about the flavor and said, what is this? And she was looking into her bowl when she said that. And I said, it's peas with garlic. And she said, and nothing, it's peas with garlic. And she finished her lunch, she finished that bowl, she kept looking at these peas and kept tasting them with every bite, and she was amazed. And when it was all over, she said, maybe this would be good with walnuts. That would have raised the class. That would have added another ingredient. And that would have hardly changed, I suggest, her pleasure at eating this dish that she'd never had before. Defrosted peas with freshly chopped garlic. Adjust the garlic, a little bit of garlic, a middle amount of garlic, it's your mouth. This is my message. Eat defrosted peas. Defrosted peas are not raw. They have been cooked quickly so that they would be sterile before they were frozen. In the bag, frozen food, so the outside is not as tough. It doesn't have the full green feeling of raw peas, but it's also not heavily cooked. It's really very nice, but you need to add a little something, and garlic is just one of the little somethings that might be added. Here is my recipe for hummus. This is my recipe for hummus. You open up a can of garbanzo beans, you allow it to drain, you chop up a little bit of garlic according to your taste, and you mix it with that, and you eat it with a spoon. The beans have not been crushed, and they have not had a couple extra spices added to them, which you might figure out what it says on a container of hummus. You might choose to add another spice besides these 2. But most importantly, this recipe for hummus has not been drowned in olive oil. It is a low-fat food. People in countries that are kind of arid around the Mediterranean, the Middle East, southern Greece, North Africa, eat a lot of hummus because what do you do when you're living in a place that can't produce food very easily? And trees will grow there that will produce oil. You can't say no to those calories in those countries. So you cover the oil by mixing it with mashed garbanzo beans and some spices. We don't need to do that anymore. This is fine, and it hits the spot for hummus. Okay, it's a hot day, you're thirsty, you're tired, you've been doing something, you're hot, you need a cold one. Well, there's Heineken, and there's Budweiser, and there are cucumbers. If you have a cucumber in your refrigerator, you can take that cucumber out. It's got a lot of liquid in it. It's really cold. You can take a Japanese cucumber. You can take, that's my favorite. They're grown here, easily available locally. An English cucumber. You can take an American cucumber. I don't like American cucumbers. Tell you right up front, I don't like it. And dip it in something before each bite. You take the cucumber, you dip it in something, you take a bite. You figure out right away whether you got too much dip or not enough dip. Adjust with the next bite, and so on. Adjust for all your different bites. This is a very nice thing. The recipe is not fixed and set in front of you where you decide, oh, this is too strong in that or too weak in something else. You do it with each bite. You dip it in something. You dip it in something. Yes? Something like what? That's the next slide. Something like what? You dip it in something. Here, it's not quite the next slide. Here's a box of Chinese cucumbers. I took this picture in a market in Beijing a few years ago. Some things for cucumbers. I like yellow mustard. Mustard seeds ground up are not yellow. They're brown. The yellow comes from turmeric, which is a vegetable. It's called a spice, but does it come from animals or vegetables? It's a root. I like yellow mustard. If you're really hungry and you want to make a meal out of this cucumber, you can take refried beans, open a can of refried beans. They haven't been fried. They may say they're made with in the traditional way, in which case you need to avoid it because the traditional way is heavy with lard. So fat-free refried beans or refried beans with 2% fat is not really too much. You might mix some salsa in, Indian mango pickle. Whoops, fermented, there's more than one way. Fermented tofu, I eat a lot of fermented tofu. In Chinese, it's really fermented bean curd. You can buy it in jars. In Chinatown, it's Chinese or Vietnamese. It's pho yu for the yellow stuff and nam yu for the red-brown stuff. Mash that up a little bit and dip your cucumber in that, and wow, there's all the flavor. And if it's too strong, you take less next time, and if it's too weak, you take more next time. And I met somebody who absolutely positively did not like cucumbers, and I stuck my face in his face, and I said, I'll bet you can't just eat one cucumber. Because this is delicious. I don't like cucumbers either. But this way, it's wonderful. And fermented soybean paste, and now we get into things like what's that called? What's the Japanese word for that? Miso, of course, miso. In Korean, doenjang, fermented soybean paste. The little arrows appearing up there when I wiggle? They are. So here's a bunch of things, and this is a partial list. These are things that I use. You may find something else you'd like to dip it in. Very refreshing and really delicious. Okay, I have a 12-inch Teflon fry pan. Here is dinner one night. I don't eat breakfast. I eat a small lunch to get me through the day. Dinner is it for me. This is dinner. It's a potato cut in half. It's approximately half of a medium-sized head of cabbage, and it's a couple of carrots cut into big pieces. You put that in the pan, you add some water, and you put the lid on and you let it steam. On another day, it was cabbage, potatoes, and beets. On another day, I did it with a yam. When you finish cooking this, the carrots or the yam taste like candy. The cabbage tastes hearty. The potato tastes delicious. If you want to add some flavoring of some kind to it, go ahead. But on most nights, I don't even bother. It's fine the way it is. Here it is all cooked up and ready to eat. I put it in a bowl, but if you want to put some flavorings in it, nutritional yeast is a good flavoring. Raw chopped garlic, once it hits the The hot food, it's not raw anymore. Yellow Thai curry, perhaps with a little coconut milk. I'll show you that in more detail. Black bean sauce, fermented tofu, we've talked about that. Mushroom powder, just sprinkle it a little bit on top and the flavor changes. Regular American curry. You can use salt. A little moderation would be appropriate, but you can use salt. I'll show you the recipe with some veggie sausage, and you may have a choice as to what kind of veggie sausage. Spices, mixed spices, garlic, pepper, something stupid out of a shaker, you sprinkle a little bit on, and the flavor very low class. I think you're all noticing this. You're looking at me and saying, that man is embarrassing himself. Okay, so let's get started on a dish. Here's cut up potatoes in my 12-inch Teflon fry pan. A little water on the bottom, the lid goes on the top, and that cooks. I stick a fork in once in a while to see if the potatoes are something like done. I don't want them all the way done. I take the lid off and I add a bunch of broccoli. Broccoli doesn't take as long to cook as the potatoes. Put the lid back on and let that cook. And there it is cooking away. And when the broccoli is done, I take it out and put it in a big bowl. This is an 8-inch heavy-duty Korean bowl with a long-handled Korean spoon. And is it ready to eat? Well, so far it's potatoes and broccoli. I love this with yeast flakes. Several of the local stores here sell yeast flakes in bulk. Yeast flakes put on top give your veggie dish a nutty, cheesy flavor. I use all of this nutritional yeast I want. To start with, I cover the whole dish with that. And if I eat off the top and there isn't any more, I put more on the top. And what do you want? Nutty, cheesy. I think that's an accurate measure as to what it tastes like. And you can choose the nutritional yeast, which contains B12, but I wouldn't trust that to satisfy, as a vegan, I don't trust that to satisfy my need for B12. So I do take the pills as needed on a regular basis, maybe every other day, more or less. But if you have a choice between nutritional yeast and regular yeast, you may as well go for this. This is delicious. I love that. And there's a ton of it here, enough to fill even this belly. Okay, now we're drifting toward lower class than that. This is pretty fancy. There's tomato puree. It's available from some of the membership stores. This can, maybe you can read on the slide, weighs 6 pounds and 10 ounces, and it costs less than $3. Here in Hawaii, it costs less than $3. If you can open the can, and it's a little hard to do, it takes me to open that can with it's a little hard for me, even with a regular can opener. It's, in between tomato paste and tomato sauce. It's got the consistency of something like a hot cooked cereal. And it tastes fine. I add some regular garlic and I avoid the chopping. I buy a jar of pre-chopped garlic. That's low class. And I add a teaspoon of that to this, and it's delicious. It's delicious without that garlic. And it's concentrated by about a factor of 2.2 as compared to regular tomatoes. And it's cooked as compared to regular tomatoes, which makes the nutrients more available because the cell walls have been broken down by the cooking. Compared to regular tomatoes, as the tomatoes you'd buy in the store, this costs 20 cents a pound. How much do tomatoes cost? $2, $3 a pound, 3.5 sometimes? This costs 20 cents a pound for the nutrients, and you don't have to cut it up and throw a little piece away and go through that. It eats easy. The only danger is after you eat a cup, you're full, because you just ate the equivalent of 2.5 tomatoes. 20 cents a pound. All the nutrition is there, and I want you to see what the ingredients are. Down at the bottom of this list, I carefully took the picture to avoid the brand name. The ingredients are tomatoes, period. Most tomato products are very high in salt. The world is changing. We're drifting away from that. The ingredients are tomatoes, period. You want to add something to that? Go ahead. I usually add something to that, as I said. Tomatoes. If I were to have pasta, I would not have pasta with tomato sauce. I would have tomato puree with some pasta in it and some Italian spices added in there. Regular pasta sauce is fatty, and I wouldn't be putting just enough on to color the spaghetti or the noodles. I would be eating tomato puree with Italian flavor added to that, and a moderate amount of pasta. Here's another thing that's available from a membership store. This is 6.3 pounds of fancy cut green beans. Sorry, I said fancy. Green beans. And if you also, and that's not if you also buy some 4-bean salad, you can mix the two, and there's dinner out of a big bowl. The 4-bean salad, I forget what the 4 beans are. There's red, there's garbanzo, and green, and I don't know what the third one is. The fourth one is. But this is sweet, and it's got some salt in it, and it is spicy and a little sour. Maybe 1 part of this to 4 to 6 parts of green beans. Stir it up. And if you're hungry, the bowl is empty in a hurry and it tastes fine. That's a recipe. That's a low-class recipe. Probably has a lot of ingredients in it because 4-bean salad has a lot of ingredients in it. It's delicious, and what you've eaten for the most part is a whole bunch of green beans. I don't know another way to say this. There's only one kind of vegetable juice on the market that I know about. It's V8 juice. And lately they've come out with a low sodium version. And I can't tell, I always avoided drinking that because it was so high in sodium. You drink a can of sodium and you would get approximately the maximum amount that anybody should take in during a whole day. But now, the low sodium stuff has, look over here, 200 milligrams of sodium, which is 8% of your maximum amount for the whole day, and it has more potassium than that. Much more potassium. Well, usually it's the sodium-potassium ratio that's important in the diet. Cell walls operate by a sodium-potassium gradient across the surface, and you are not getting a heavy dose of sodium and a tiny dose of potassium. I consider this a pretty healthy drink. And as I look in the supermarkets, there are more cans of stewed tomatoes, crushed tomatoes, another kind of tomatoes like that are low sodium. It's coming into the market in regular supermarkets. And the stewed tomatoes in particular have half a dozen spices in there that make it tasty, if you want to go for that. But here is one particular drink that has, how much fat does it have? Well, it's vegetable juice. It's the juice of mixed vegetables. It's what we say all the time. Don't pick one vegetable and eat just that. Eat a lot of different vegetables and corms and grains, a large variety. Well, here's a can with a large variety of vegetables in it. Celery and tomato, and it goes on. I eat kale sandwiches. Big, fat, hearty kale sandwiches. Here's a head of kale from the market, from the farm, actually, near my house. There's a dish underneath so you can judge how big it is. I cut it twice to the size of a sandwich. One cut is made already, and the knife is there for the second cut. So my first cut is there, and my second cut is there. That's it. That's half, a little bit more than half of a full head of kale. Stick it in my pan, 12-inch Teflon pan. Add some water, put the lid on, cook it until it collapses. not for any length of time, until it stops being tall inside the pan, until it collapses. While that's happening, I put a lot of yellow mustard on 2 slices of real bread. My favorite is whole grain, multi-grain bread. Plenty of mustard. We got to deal with a lot of kale here. Here's the kale in its pan collapsed. I allow the water to, I pour out the water and I pile it high on 1 piece of bread. This pile is about 3 inches high. 3 inches high. You put the second piece of bread on the top and push it down, because the kale's been cooked a little bit and collapsed. It pushes right down to give you a fat sandwich, and it's delicious. And it's a heavy dose of kale. It's not, here's a little bit of kale, here's a little bit of kale, it's good for you. I know it tastes bad, it's good for you. This is delicious. And on another day, I ate it with 3 raw carrots. There's a recipe for you. Another ingredient. So we're getting high class here. On the next day, it was time to finish the rest of the kale. So into that pan went carrots, potatoes, and the rest of the kale. Got steamed until everything was done. That's it. It's done. Got served kale on 1 plate, because that's now a finger food, and the potatoes and the carrots on another plate, and it's not delicious yet. It needed 1 more thing, and so here's the bean curd in the back. The yellow, I consider it beige. Some people say yellow. There's the bean curd in the back. How did that happen? Bean curd in the back where the arrow is. The arrow isn't there anymore. There it is. Now this is stinky stuff. It's kind of salty. You can't really take too much, but a little bit of it changes everything. I don't want to eat potatoes straight. I don't want to eat carrots straight. And kale's a little tough. But all it takes is a little bit of this bean curd over here, and the arrow's gone again, but there it is back again. And a lot of ways to advance slides around here. But that just makes the whole difference. Too much is too much. But a little bit makes the whole difference and makes dinner fun. Okay, the next slide is dessert. 2 bananas. I was able to get some extra fancy creamy bananas from the Hawaii Agricultural Research Center, where I have some ties, and a handful of roasted salted peanuts. And that's a delicious dessert. Tastes like candy. It's really wonderful. It's a wonderful dessert, and it's healthy. There's a lot of good things in nuts, all kinds of nuts, including peanuts. Okay, here's another product out of my 12-inch Teflon pan. Here you see cabbage as before. You see yams as before. You see a quarter of a breadfruit that I had previously baked. That's the dark thing. And you see half a sausage. Now you can get vegan sausages at all of the health food stores in town. This is from the largest one. And I use half of it. It's got some oils in it. It's got a lot of spices in it. It's very tasty. I take a little bite out of that. There's the sausages in the back. I take a little bite out of that whenever I want as I eat along. It's got a total of 130 calories, which is not a problem for a whole dinner. And this is a special treat for me. Usually I eat things that are plainer, but to actually put in the sausage in there is a treat. And is there another slide like that? Yeah, here it is served in its 8-inch heavy plastic bowl. Cabbage, under the spoon is the breadfruit, quarter breadfruit, the sausage, and the yam. Okay, I've gotten too fancy. I'm deviating from low class. This almost looks good enough to eat, right? Time to get low class again. Here's a weed growing out of my lawn. It's called purslane. I saw it for sale at an open market here in Honolulu, and I realized that other people were paying money for it and had their recipes for it. I know purslane is used in salads in France. It's considered a good ingredient for salads. It's crunchy. So I cut off a bunch of it. It's also very high in omega-3 oils. It's not an oily vegetable, but it's high in omega-3. And most American diets and most vegan diets are low in omega-3s, too high in omega-6s. So here's a bunch of purslane. You can judge by the regular dinner plate underneath how much it is. According to the Joy of Cooking, I'm supposed to blanch it beforehand, so I cut it up and put it in my microwave oven for about a minute. That's modern blanching, no pot of hot water. And I added a little bit of something, whatever it was. On my first day, I used miso. On some other day, I used one of those Chinese things, the fermented bean curd, just a little. And that's it. It changes the dish. It's a 2-ingredient dish. Weeds plus 1 added ingredient for flavor. And it's fine. And I've got plenty of weeds, and I'm really happy. What's this? What is it? It's lettuce. It's red leaf lettuce. There's a little bit of red to the tip. Anybody? I've never understood lettuce. For most of my life, I never understood lettuce. What's it all about? Not much flavor. If somebody handed you a bowl of lettuce, a salad made mostly with lettuce, you'd say, "Where's the dressing? I'm not going to eat this. Here's a leaf of lettuce." Well, maybe you'll eat it and do a show, but you're not going to live that way. I never understood lettuce. There's a sandwich around, you put a leaf of lettuce in it. I ask, why? Oh, for the color, people say, for the crunch. Okay, but I never understood lettuce. So I'm now making Mexican food. This is an 8-inch ceramic bowl, an 8-inch dinner bowl. I put 3 tortillas in it. I put a can of refried beans on top of that. 1 can of refried beans. I bust it up a little bit so it'll heat up more evenly when I put it in the microwave. I put another tortilla on the top so it doesn't splatter inside my microwave oven. I put it, it takes about a minute. That's kind of hot, a minute and a half maybe would make it very hot. Here's a jalapeno. Jalapeno pepper. Ooh, you got to watch out for those. They're kind of hot. Well, this is not an ordinary jalapeno. It's the kind of jalapeno that's available for most Latin, Mexican markets. It's available in most markets in Honolulu. Jalapeno en escabeche. Jalapeno, it's got 8 ingredients in it. It's got a little salt, it's got a little vinegar, it's got bay leaves, it's got oregano, it's got onion, it's got garlic. It's pretty much a jalapeno stew. But you pull full jalapeno, it's got carrots in it. You maybe can see one of those in the picture. Jalapenos en escabeche. It's far different from jalapenos that have just been cut up and put into a can and preserved. Jalapenos en escabeche. Did I mention the ingredients? I'm sure I did, but here you can see onions, carrots, vinegar, iodized salt. Spices I mentioned are oregano and bay leaf. There's a lot to this. Not just a punch in the mouth. There's a lot of flavor here. You cut up the jalapenos, so I'm not asking anybody to pick the thing up and take a bite out of it and burn your lips. There it is, cut up in little pieces, and here it is served. There it is served. You can see the jalapeno cut up, you can see those tortillas, and you can't see the refried beans in the middle. The refried beans keep the tortillas hot, the tortillas keep the refried beans hot, and there's that green stuff in the back that I said bad things about a minute ago. Well, where do you start? Do you start with the green stuff? No. You start with the jalapenos? No. You start with the tortillas and the refried beans, and pretty soon you say, this is a little quiet. I'm going to take a little taste of the jalapeno. And you do that, and then you go back to the tortillas and the refried beans, and then maybe another bite of that, and then another little bit of the jalapenos, and where are you? Your mouth is kind of dry and kind of overspiced. You take one of those lettuce leaves and you fold it in half and you fold it in quarters and you fold it again until it fits your mouth, and you put it in your mouth, and it's the sweetest, most refreshing thing you could ever imagine. I usually finish a whole head of lettuce in a dinner like this, twice as much lettuce as was in the plate, and I love it. It's wonderful. It's refreshing, and with all that lettuce, I'm allowed to eat the refried beans and the tortillas and the jalapeno, which altogether are too dry and too hot. This is Mexican food. It's satisfying. I've lived in Mexico. I know Mexican food. I grew up in California. This is hits all my bases for happy Mexican food. Last time I had it, it took another half jalapeno to get it down, but I ate a whole. So who's eating what? Am I eating Mexican food with lettuce to help it down, or am I eating a head of lettuce with some refried beans and tortillas and jalapenos to get that head of lettuce down? Head of lettuce is marvelous. It's ridiculous to eat a piece of lettuce. It's ridiculous to eat that little bowl of lettuce that might come in this little bowl if you were in a restaurant and there's some leaves of lettuce in there, and you stab it with a fork and you get nothing, and you stab twice and concentrate, and then you get two little leaves stuck on the end of your fork, and you put that in your mouth and you have to stab again and again, and when you're all finished, you've eaten this much lettuce. Come on. A head of lettuce. If you're going to buy a head of lettuce, eat it. And here's a great way to get that down. Okay, what are we looking at here? We're looking at cauliflower. The national dish of Mexico is gallina and mole. Pollo and mole. Chicken with mole sauce. Well, in 1864, Maximilian got imported to Mexico because Mexico decided they needed royalty. So they got some Australian royalty and they brought him in to make him the king of Mexico. Didn't work out very well, but some people in Puebla worked very hard, possibly resurrecting an old Aztec recipe, worked very hard to come up with a sauce to make a dish that would be a wonderful greeting dish for new royalty coming to Mexico. And that is mole sauce, and that's what's in the dark dish in the background. This mole sauce actually came from Mexico City, last time I was there. Now, needless to say, I don't eat chicken. The last time I ate chicken was 1990, 24 and a half years ago. And I've been fishing for much of that time for what to eat mole sauce with. I was ready to eat mole sauce straight, but that doesn't really work. It's like sucking out of a ketchup bottle or something. You can't do that for very long and you're still hungry. It doesn't go with broccoli, it doesn't go with cabbage, it doesn't go with carrots, it doesn't go. It goes wonderfully with cauliflower. In Spanish, cauliflower and mole. A dark sauce. It doesn't look nice. You put black stuff, painting black-brown stuff on top of the cauliflower. So I take the cauliflower, a forkful, and dip it in the mole sauce, or put a little bit on each bite as I eat it. You can adjust how much mole sauce. There's 20 ingredients in mole sauce. It contains ground up peanuts, 2 different kinds of seeds. It contains coffee and chocolate. It contains not just red pepper, but 3 or 4 different kinds of peppers. The Mexican kinds of peppers. How many peppers are there? It contains 20 ingredients, and I love it. And cauliflower and mole is better than pollo and mole. It's magnificent, and you can eat a whole head of cauliflower. I don't know about a large head, but one person can eat a whole medium-sized head. It goes down so easily. And it's wonderful. This is a member of the cabbage family. Don't be mad at cauliflower because it's white. It's a perfectly good vegetable. Okay, the next dish. I was sitting on an airplane going to California, and I was sitting next to a man from Hawaii who was maybe traveling to visit family. He was wearing a t-shirt, a pair of pants. That was it. We got to talking a little bit. He told me about I said I was kind of vegetarian, and that's why I wasn't eating the same thing he was on the airplane. A number of years ago is when they used to feed people on the airplanes all the time. And he said, oh, there's this dish that I love. And he got to glowing. He got to glowing. He said, you take some miso and you put it on the bottom of a great big bowl. That's how much miso. About half a forkful, not very deep. Miso, Japanese miso. Add a little water and stir it up so it'll stir properly with what's coming next, because it needs to have the consistency of a dressing so it'll mix with everything else. And here's, what do you call that? There's a lot of names for that. Chinese cabbage, siu choy, beichu in Korean, makina in some local markets, wonbok, this is the stuff that so-called Korean kimchi is made out of locally in supermarkets. All those names, here it is. This is a pound and a half head of cabbage. Head of Chinese cabbage, Asian cabbage, white cabbage, sometimes called on them. I cut this in fine slices, 1/8 of an inch if I can manage. Fine slices, just cut the whole thing up in fine slices, put it in the bowl. The bowl is now full. Stir it up, and that's it. That's it. 2 ingredients. A whole pound and a half of that little bit of miso takes this way over the top. It's delicious. I tell this to some local people. They say add a little rice vinegar, add a little sugar. I've done those 2 things. It doesn't taste as good. The man on the airplane said, yeah, you can do it, but it doesn't change anything. And he was glowing about how he really enjoys eating this stuff. And I do too. A little bit of miso and a whole head of cabbage. You stir it up, you stick your fork in it, and your fork comes up full. Put that in your mouth, you keep going. I never could have imagined a while back that anybody could enjoy eating a whole head of cabbage raw with so little adjustment to the flavor. Same head of cabbage, here we go. Some split peas on the bottom of my favorite pan, with which you are now very familiar. Add some water. Cook it on a low heat for an hour. The split peas are all swollen up, easy to mash. I then mash them. I add the same head of cabbage, not cut fine, just cut it up. The whole head of cabbage goes in there. It cooks, and then it goes into a bowl. And there it is, a big hearty bowl, whole head of cabbage, split peas. And to this I add regular English curry. No hotness to it, no pepper in it. English curry, American curry. You can buy a pound of it in some stores for $6 or $8. It'll last a decade, a year or a decade, how much you want of that. And I eat this whole thing, and it's delicious. I think I'm eating curried peas. I think I'm eating curried pea soup. But while that's happening, a pound of cabbage goes into me. And that's so healthy. The peas are healthy, the curry is fine. It's a mixture of powdered vegetables. And the peas are fine. It's a legume. It's kind of an extra source of protein. We need to think as vegans, we need to think a little bit about getting enough protein into ourselves. Okay, here's a pamphlet came from PETA the other day to my mailbox. Here's a recipe that I have inside. How many ingredients are in this recipe? 10 or 12, it hurts to count. What does it say to do? It says over here, bring water to a boil and add some of those things. It says heat in olive oil in a skillet, something else happening on the side. It says put the toasted walnuts in a food processor. When am I going to do that? Never. Never. Maybe I'll do something this complex if I hear on the news that I'm going to be snowed in for 3 days, and I decided it would be fun to play in the kitchen. Or if a hurricane was coming and I wouldn't be able to leave my house for 3 days, I might do something like that. Over on the literature table, there's a booklet called Easy Vegan Recipes. All right, I see people picking that up, turning the pages and putting it back down. Here's what it looks like at a sample page. The first recipe has 8 ingredients. The next one looks like 16 ingredients to me. And the next one has, 14. When am I going to do this? When? You're going to pick up one of those books? Go ahead if you like, but I'm preaching against it. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. Here comes Thai food. Thai food. I like Thai food. Everybody like Thai food? You go to the restaurant, you order Thai food. Oh boy, we're having Thai food tonight. My Thai food consists of Thai curry and coconut milk. In my refrigerator right now and any time is a tray of frozen coconut milk cubes. It doesn't need to be put in a bag. It's got a layer of fat on the top. I take one of those cubes, because coconut milk doesn't last long. You open a can of coconut milk, you got to use it up in a hurry. I don't want to use a lot of coconut milk. It's fatty, but still it's a part of Thai food. You go to a Thai restaurant, they'll give you a bowl of coconut milk. You don't need that. That doesn't help you get from here to the end of a long life. So I take my bowl and I put some Thai curry powder or paste and a melted coconut cube on the bottom of that bowl. Stir it up. There it sits at the bottom of the bowl, bowl is waiting for food to be put in it. And when the food's put in it, it'll get stirred up. You got to watch out for your Thai curries. The red curry of commerce contains shrimp paste. The green curry of commerce contains shrimp paste. The yellow curry of commerce is okay. And if you have a Thai restaurant that caters to vegans, you can buy, and that's what I've done lately, green curry paste from a Thai restaurant. You go in and they'll sell you 8 ounces or a pound of it in a container, $5, something like that, and you're good for a long time. Steam up a bunch of vegetables. You've seen a picture like this before. You put it all in the bowl, and that's Thai food. You get to choose your vegetables. Lots of times when I get Thai curry with a vegan curry in a restaurant, they choose the vegetables. If you order the yellow curry, the vegetables they choose are carrots and potatoes. Well, that's not very sexy. Where's the green stuff? So this is delicious, and I go to Thai restaurants with people, but I don't get a zing out of it. It's nice, but I get all the Thai food I want at home, and it was trivial to make. Okay, I'm ending with the romance of the iron pot. My iron pot. Iron pot. I put a bunch of wheat and pinto beans in it, and I get that up to boiling. It can go all day long. The wheat the wheat plumps up and stays chewy no matter how long you cook it. The beans begin to fall apart as if to make a bean soup or a bean stew. In this case, I took some baby beets and put the beets down underneath the hot stew, the hot grains and beans, and put the leaves on the top, cut them up and put them on the top. I added some rosemary from my garden, a 6 or 8 inch stem of rosemary. You strip the little leaves off, you put it inside, cooks for a long time, you don't notice that there's something hard in there. On a later day, I couldn't finish the whole thing. On a later day, I cut up a zucchini and put it underneath and finished that off with a bunch of beet greens on the top. Here go the beet greens into the pot when it's fresh. Everything else is cooked for a long time. Put the lid back on. 20 minutes later, the beet greens have collapsed and everything's ready to eat. It's chewy, it's juicy, it's got the rosemary flavor, it's got a whole bunch of beets, the greens and the beets, or for this later dinner, the greens and a whole zucchini underneath. And that's my talk. Your meals can be easy. You may have other things to do with your life and your time. You may make something that doesn't have very many ingredients in it, and it can be really delicious and fully satisfying. Like you don't sit there and wish you were in somebody else's house or in a restaurant. You're glad that you have what you have. No careful measuring, a quarter teaspoon of this, half a cup of that. Not much time in the kitchen. You do something in the kitchen, you go do something else while it cooks. And very little to wash afterwards. And you're all done. So that's my message. I invite you to lower your class and to be proud of it as you show other people this. And when you have guests in your house, lower your class and feed them stuff like this. So thank you very much. Yes.
Is your focus mainly animal rights or health, or what was your main thrust?
Is my main thrust in living or in eating, is it animal rights, is it my personal health, or is it protection of the environment? And the answer is I subscribe to all three of those tenets as put forth by this vegetarian society. I'm very happy that to be taking really good care of my own health. I'm very happy that there are no animal products in here, so there is no cruelty to animals, either in their slaughter or in their raising, and that there is no cruelty to the environment. I'm minimizing that. And I can go a little further. I got raised frugally and I can't break the habit, and I'm proud of my cheapness. Thank you for that question.
Any other questions?
I think there's no special problem with the question is about coconut milk. Is coconut milk good for you, or should we be avoiding coconut milk? Coconut is a natural food. It is kind of high in fat, but as I understand it, it is a short chain fat that the body has trouble weaving into a cholesterol molecule. But it is fat, and so I minimize the amount of coconut milk that I use, 1 frozen cube of it. It does add something to the flavor, and I think there's no special problem with coconut milk. But you don't want to sit around drinking it. It's a fat food. And most of us, how many people here have a skinny problem? Problem that you're too skinny? There's one fool in the back, there's another one. So, but it's not really, there's no great source of vitamins and minerals. Yes?
Do you have a good source for, when you look at the cans of the coconut milk, a lot of them have big time preservatives and chemicals in them, it looks like. Most of them seem like you wouldn't want to buy that. But you're a chemist, so maybe there's a healthier one.
So there are much of the coconut milk around has additives in it, chemicals and preservatives, and you can read that on the label. Personally, I'm not concerned about any of those. I don't think that any of those pose any danger. But I recognize that it's a matter of taste, and some people would like to avoid them, and so we're all free to read our cans of coconut milk. I pay no attention to those things. I do not think there are any danger. Yes?
What about the protein content? The protein content, or the protein required in your diet?
Okay, this question is about the protein content of the foods that I've been talking about and the need for protein in the diet. So I do eat a reasonable amount of tofu. Maybe once every 2 weeks I'll have a good slab of it. The last dish I talked about and a couple other dishes had beans in them. The Mexican dish was a refried bean dish, and the iron pot romance, that romance of the iron pot, that had beans in it. Lentils, you need to eat something besides just vegetables and flavoring. You need to have something in your diet someplace, no big thing, doesn't have to be every day, that is a richer source of proteins. That's my belief. But and after that, you don't have to worry about it. As you eat a wide-ranging vegan diet, you will get enough protein. The usual question is, how many people in the United States suffer from a lack of protein? And how careful do we have to be that we get enough protein? And the answer is, there's two classes of people who don't get enough protein in the United States. One class is people who are simply starving and they don't get enough of anything. And the other class is people who get all their calories from a liquor bottle. And they're in a lot of trouble and they don't get enough protein. But for the rest of us, wow, we're okay. It's a fear. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Karl Seff, for this really delightful and very practical presentation, and I hope all of you will want to be as low class as he is. Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming. Mahalo. Have a safe return home. Good night. Take care, everyone.
Well, my 80th birthday caught up with me last December, and I'm the guy in the 80 shirt here, and also have a blue helmet. First we all climbed in an airplane, and then we all jumped out. And several friends had fun playing footsies with my feet. And when I got down, it was my 1170th skydive. So then I took a friend flying on a Globe sailplane up on Oahu's north shore, and then for my usual ring and trampoline workout.